Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. Here is another making it from scratch or continuing a track, whatever we want to call it. I have a beat that I'm working on that I've got a lot of work to do, but it was kind of cool how it came about. I really highly recommend this method, but like if you have a looping pedal or you play an instrument of some kind and you have like an iPhone, you could record some audio, just like some really random, like whatever you want, and then manipulate it and basically get some sort of ideas or some vibes into it. And so for this, I was using this MXR Clone Looper. It's a pretty cool looper for a few different reasons. One, it's looping outside of sort of any BPM tied, so that's good and bad. It requires you to hit these in time, like a lot of looping pedals. But what's really unique about this one is if you hit this button once, it turns the signal, whatever's happening, reverse. So it starts going backwards. And then you can record when it's going backwards and flip it back over, and it gives you what you had originally with what you now recorded backwards. And then if you double tap this, it takes everything that you have, the loop, and it plays it at double speed or twice as fast. And so that's basically what I did. I'll show you the different loops I made and then the beat that I have going based on that. So let's go ahead and do the logic. So here we are, and I'm going to, before I play everything that I have, I'm going to play the different samples. And on a side note, if you find this helpful, you would help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me get this channel monetized, which I'm working really hard towards. So this is the sample or the loop that I had without it being double time. It sounds like this. So it would keep going. But basically, that has some backwards sounds and some forward sounds, again, taking advantage of this MXR loop. And that is at standard time. And really, I wasn't even that impressed with that. But when I put that all to double time, I just had this thought, like, this is actually kind of cool and catchy. So let me show you. That at double speed sounds like this. Cool. And once again, that I did not do with any sort of like click track. I didn't really even have an idea in mind. I was just jamming on the guitar and playing around with the pedal. Playing around with technology, again, excuse me, is a great way to just flow, just get in the zone and create something that you can then use some music theory or just production skills to bring to life. So that was my sample. My next step was to figure out, well, what tempo works well with this. And so I listened to this and I used a tap tempo feature. I do not have a tap tempo set as a cue. You can actually set a key command inside of Logic to have a button on your keyboard be a tap tempo, but I actually like using the most generic basic tap tempo. If you Google tap tempo, it's a website. Any key tracks the speed. And but again, you can do that default into Logic. So I tap along 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And at first I got 116 beats per minute, but through working on it, I found 113 beats per minute worked the best. So the reason we want to get the session into the tempo of the track is so that we can start using the actual grid to program drum stuff, which I've done. So I added a kick drum. Sounds like this. Then I went and I took a drum and bass drum sample that I had. Originally it was at 172 beats per minute, and I slowed it way down. This is a kind of like a cool technique also to take samples from like one genre of music and try to repurpose them into another. I feel like this adds a lot of flavor to it. I'm going to turn those drums down briefly, and I had this. I like it. Pretty cool. The next thing I did was I recorded just playing live bass to this. I have an effects chain going here. I'm EQing it, cutting out the subs from this bass, boosting the point that I cut. putting it through Waves NS1, just a noise canceling, or essentially a gate of some kind. A Universal Audio UAD 1176, and then into the JJP bass from Waves. It sounds like this. Nice. My next step was to figure out what notes I was playing and to put that into MIDI. So this is basically what I did, one line at a time. I was playing the chords of like B minor down to G major up to D to A. So this is one version of those notes. Now, because I had a bunch of different layers going, I'm playing it fast, I kind of just wanted to use my ear to make this interesting. So I'm going B, up to D, up to F sharp, to E. So this is the root of the first chord. This is the fifth of the second chord. This is the third of the third chord. And this is the fifth or top note of our fourth chord. With everything else, it sounds like this. All right, next thing I did was I wrote a melody on top of it. I actually used that same patch. So that is Isotope Iris 2 going into a guitar amp and then going into LFO Tool by the same company that makes Serum, Steve Duda's X-Fur Records. And that sounds like this. So again, I was really just freestyling. We could solo out some different layers and get some cool sections. So maybe the drums and everything but the sample. Drop the melody. Maybe bring our sample in. So when we are making beats or writing songs, there's the parts that we have, the different elements, and then an arrangement in music refers to like when parts come in or the order of stuff. And that has a lot to do with how music is perceived in addition to what is actually being played. So I'm pretty happy with all of this section. One of my next things I wanted to do, so I wrote this active bass line, and if I solo it out with our sample, the active bass sounds like this. Now, I am not the greatest bass player. I am a guitar player first, and one of the things that, like, so I can play the notes in time. I could have used a pick, but that's really going to start to, you're going to hear the pick, and I'm kind of a purist in the sense that I don't like to hear pick attacks on bass parts. It's like real bass players play with their fingers. That could be debated, but I'm going to start editing this. So if you hit this button right here, that will turn on flex editing. It'll ask you if you want to do that, and be careful. This is going to be a little bit harder on the computer. So I'm watching my CPU temps at 72. So I'm rocking pretty well right now. Let's loop this. Now, first of all, we kind of hear the audio clipping. So if I move this in, I'm going to want to like slide the whole thing over. All right, and let's add a little bit of a fade. All right, cool. So if I zoom in here, we can start to put hits in time. So using the grid above, Now it's really some of these in-between hits that are bothering me. So another thing about flexing is you might want to mark the ones in time that you already like, so that as we start editing this further, it won't move the notes, since these are kind of like markers. So and just kind of making my performance better. You know, you can really repurpose like stuff all sorts of different ways. Cool. And then it can be smart to turn off flex editing once you do that, so that again you're not working the computer harder than you have to. I am going to loop some of that. So right here, it basically starts to repeat. So we could grab that. Anytime you chop an audio like sample like that, you're going to want to add subtle fades so you don't get clipping. So that, I don't know exactly where I want to use that, but that would be definitely something cool to play with. All right, so let's start arranging this a little bit. All right, so I don't want it to smack so fast, so I'm going to give myself some room here to do the arrangement. All right, so let's take our loop and bring that in. We could do like 4 times of the sample. I moved this one measure too far. All right, cool. What if we duplicate our sample channel, duplicate our drum channel, bring the drums in right from the beginning, but make it feel like it's filtered. So I could add a low pass and a high pass. Do something like that. Copy this down here. So maybe add that the second time. Something like, so the drums will sound like this. All right, so then with the sample, I think we can kind of do the same sort of thing. So if I add, now am I doing any affecting of the sample? I'm not, so that's kind of cool. Like anytime I have a sound that I think is exciting or that I'm into and I haven't done a lot of effects processing, it is cool because it's like there's a lot more that can be done to make this even wilder. So let's definitely add a low pass on that, and then let's automate this filter to open. Cool. So to draw that in, you can hit A, Access Automation. We're drawing the high cut frequency line. And I'm just going to have this, I guess, maybe start opening from the beginning. And then really right at the end. So we get this. Maybe add our bass in right here. Now it's slightly out of time, so if I'm really wanting to be more accurate with this, if we zoom in, see how it's starting late, I could put that on the 1, and in that case, let's actually leave the attack, just move that forward. This one should be a little earlier. Super close. That one I'm going to put on the beat like that. Cool. And again, turn off flex, and then I'm going to want to make sure that I get rid of those basses because we now have a better version of those same things. All right, cool. So that's definitely going to be a moment. What if we also bring in our melody? Now that one, I'm going to bounce to audio so that I can then deal with the audio. It's going to be easier on my computer, and I kind of want to do some more processing on that than some of the other stuff. So let's take this down. So a low pass filter. And let's put that through like a Leslie rotary cabinet. Cool. Now with our loop, let's take the same 4 that we had, but through that effects processing and making sure none of the automation came with that. Cool. So my next step, just to kind of make a smaller section, a verse, I'm going to want to create a default patch and write in the chord. So let's see what happens if I just put like basic triads. So this is basically the key of B minor, also relative major is D major, so I started on a B minor chord. So a B minor triad would be this. So what if I do it half time? So that would be oh wait, not a D major there. We're going to a G major, then a D major, then an A major. Cool, it works. Let's grab another, like a better instrument for that. So computer's holding it up really well, this workhorse. Let's see how it handles. Actually, let's go with ultra analog. So this, I think, came from Korg when I got my Op 6. So we could load a pad, Serenade. Let's hear what that sounds like. So one thing, it's in the same register. Let's put it up an octave. Make sure I'm not clipping so hard. All right, let's take that and put it through LFO tool. That's cool. What if we bring that in? The second half like that, but probably. So anytime you don't have like perfect clips, looping it might seem like it's gonna work, but it will slowly get out of time because the loop isn't repeating right on the one. All right, so let's hear everything we've got from the beginning. Turn off the metronome. I almost feel like we need something other than the sample at this point. And let's change our melody every other time it would happen. So it's now 4 measures long. That rhythmic phrase is the same, so we went early here, so we're gonna go early the next time it happens. I feel like we want to little ending riff, perhaps. Dun dun 16th notes there at the end. Cool. I like it. So at this point, let's move all this stuff over. I think we should just go straight back in to the hook that we had. Cool. I like this. So again, I had no intention in the very beginning of making the loop that I was going to make something I wanted to make a beat with. I was really just in the zone. And when I did the processing before this video, or the setting up of all this stuff, I was also not worried about the genre. I don't really even know what genre this would be. I'm picturing having a vocalist on this. Definitely going to get my collaborator, longtime vocalist collaborator, Preston, to help me write some stuff to this. I will follow back with those vocals. If you have any questions on anything you see me do, leave them in the comments. I do my best to respond to all comments, and I greatly appreciate those of you taking the time to do that. So what other thing was I thinking? I think building a Serum sound to do some effects on this might be really cool. So let me kind of show you what I mean there. So one of the overlooked things about Serum, I'm going to mute this for a second just because it's going to be kind of annoying sounding till I get it close. So you don't necessarily just have to use synthesizers for like leads or sounds that are prominent in the record. You can use them to make effects, and it's pretty cool to do this. So let's open up Serum here. All right, now one thing we could do is we could literally turn off everything but the noise oscillator. we could trigger that note or envelope. It's not going to really matter because we're going 4 bars. I could tie this to like the volume of the noise oscillator, and then it's going to go from no sound to more noise. All right, you can play with the shape to affect sort of like how quickly it's going to go up. Then I'm probably going to have it start a little bit more than just at 0. So you'll hear it from the beginning. Then you can key track that. And you could have the pitch go up. You could do this like really subtly. All right, and then maybe I don't know, let's play with it. We could make it play with sort of some other effects, dimension expander, mix, not any at the beginning. We could get a really subtle amount of distortion at the end, automating the drive with that same LFO. Get something like this. All right, then we could bounce that to audio. One of the things that's good about doing that is that, again, anytime you do it, it's easier on our computer. I could take this Serum patch and turn it off. But what's also helpful with that is if I was just hopping around playing that with just Serum, since I don't trigger the MIDI from playing it from the beginning, I won't hear it. So in other words, I would have to play it from the beginning of this 4 measure sequence to hear it, but now I can just start here. All right. Let's hear that. We'll probably turn it down in the mix. So we could put that sound the next time we're going into a hook as well. Cool. Let's see. I really should have a timer in here so I know how long I've been tracking. But thanks for those of you still hanging out. Let's see here. I definitely am going to want to change the drums. I don't want the same drum loop happening the entire time. I am definitely going to work on the mix a lot, and I think getting a vocal on it pretty soon is going to help to sort of pick sounds and design around the vocal to really make it feel like it's not just some cool vocal on top of a developed beat, but that the vocal is integrally part of everything that's happening in the music. I like to do that on all my productions. But anyway, thank you for hanging out. I will play this one time from the very beginning. If you want to rip this from YouTube and use it in a song, just tag the channel. I'm all good with that. So here it is. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, you'd help me out a lot by subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, here's our instrumental. So at that point, in typical pop structure, we would be at a bridge. That's like, if you've seen any of my other stuff or listened to some of my productions, I love bridges. I love doing crazy stuff there. So, and again, vocals are going to be one of my next orders of business. But hopefully you found that helpful. I showed you some like flex editing, repurposing a less than perfect instrumental. So if you're like me and you can play some bass, you can make yourself sound like you can really play bass. Again, you can really like make even new stuff out of flex editing, and then a lot of other writing. So again, hopefully you found that helpful. You'd help me out by subscribing. Go make music, and I will see you next time. Cheers.